Hi, Lee. I'm so excited to welcome you to our virtual snapshots here at the Good Meat Project. We're so excited to chat with you today. It'd be great for you to give a brief introduction to who you are and what you do.
Well, hello. Thank you for that introduction. My name is Lee Meisel, and I'm the owner of Leeway Franks and Butcher here in Lawrence, Kansas. I've been a butcher for the last 20 plus years and have worked in different capacities, meat cutting, everything from retail to restaurant work, and now owning my own butcher shop. I was also opened a restaurant that was next door to it that specialized in all of our sausages and meat products. And I've been living here in Lawrence for 19 years now, and originally from North Dakota. Um, and so I came to Lawrence to go to school, and I've been here ever since. Yeah, Lawrence, Kansas it's about 40 minutes away from Kansas City. It's a college town. We actually have two universities, the University of Kansas and Haskell Indian Nations University, which is my alma mater. I graduated in 2008. Haskell has about 1,000 students representing 140 different tribal nations, and a very unique history there. And it's definitely a part of the history of Lawrence here. So yeah, I would say that our demographic tends to be, like most college towns, pretty educated, and people are really excited about food and where their food comes from. We're surrounded by a lot of small producers here. We really have a lot of great products, meat products that come from this part of the world. So yeah, we feel really fortunate to be located where we are. So yeah, I started at a butcher shop in North Dakota as a teenager. I started at the very bottom, um, working mostly I got hired on during deer season. We processed a lot of deer. Wild game was a big part of that model, and one of the few shops in our area that still uh, did deer season processing. So that kept me pretty busy, just getting my feet wet and kind of getting thrown in there. But I learned all of the things that you need to know in this line of business, from uh, processing the animals themselves, and then cutting for retail, learning how to make value added products. I made a lot of sausage. That's kind of where I began my sausage making career, I guess. But but we did a lot of custom processing as well. But there were things about it. I learned almost everything I needed to know about the work itself and developing the skills that someone needs to become a butcher. Uh, but there were things that bothered me about what we were doing. For example, I'd take inventory in the walk-ins, and I would just see boxes and boxes of IBP labeled beef from floor to ceiling. Um, and that was just a normal part of that operation. Um, Even though we were working with local farmers, a good majority of what we were doing um, came from boxes, and I would count the head of cattle that were in those boxes when I do the inventory, and it sort of planted a seed of doubt in my mind.
Hmm.
That was kind of a a point in my career where I realized that maybe there's a different way of going about this. You know,
Yeah.
um,
And
so uh,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
And then after working as a meat cutter in different capacities, everything like old school grocery store. I worked in a high end restaurant that did its own processing, charcuterie, sausages, and things like that. So at that point, I really developed a lot of my own products, and that was when I decided to open my tiny little restaurant, Leeway Franks. We specialize in sausages and sort of Midwestern comfort food classics. And the goal was to build some momentum, develop our brand, and really get some of those products, just get it off the ground. And then we were planning to expand into a retail operation at some point. And, we had our first 3 years were successful, and we saw the timing as being right. We've found the space that was 2 doors down from our restaurant, and it just all kind of worked together where in 2018, we were able to open our butcher shop, focusing on those same products that we were making and selling at the restaurant, but just having them available, a lot of different value added products as well, bringing in whole animals, working with local farmers, making those connections that really just became our driving force there. And over the years, we've just developed such great relationships with our local farmers and some of our producers, and we really are proud to promote them and give them a stage to perform on as well. Locally here, we're very fortunate. We have our customer base. They're pretty savvy when it comes to finding the good stuff. They're inquisitive. They engage, and it's just it's really great. I feel very fortunate that we're in the right time and place for our type of shop. So yeah, we've been the butcher shop has been operating since 2018, and then this last year we really pushing our focus on our butchering side of things, and developing our products a little bit more and trying to get those into stores. So last year, I actually closed down our restaurant side. Bittersweet, but it's allowed us to expand our butcher operation a little bit more. We're teaching classes in the former restaurant space, and that's going to be a big part of some of our future endeavors over there as well. So yeah, that kind of brings us up to date. Had gotten to the point with the restaurant where we had been successful. We had made money. We were, we had our heads above water. It wasn't one of these frantic, what are we going to do? We're going to lose everything, and the restaurant business is so difficult that my wife and business partner, we sat and we talked to each other, and I had been wanting to focus more on the education side of what we're doing, developing educational programs for food sovereignty, developing skills that you could use if you were going to do some farm processing and things like that. And we started hosting these classes over the course of this year, and I started to realize that this could be a bigger lasting impact that we have on the local food system, as opposed to being a restaurant that happens to specialize in selling local meat products. The other thing that was a little unexpected is how popular the butcher shop would become, how much more of a demand there would be for those items. And we started to realize that the limiting factor in all of that was this sort of, we felt that we needed to spend so much time and energy on developing the restaurant and making sure that those products were top notch, and staying competitive. And we started to realize that we were losing our focus on the core, like our core sort of goal, and our core mission was to create those relationships with the consumer and our farmers, trying to develop our role in the food system, in the local food system, and define what that is. And so we were in a fortunate example of being able to close the restaurant, having not lost any money or anything like that. It was certainly a difficult decision to make, but I just feel like it was the right one, because it has opened up so many other opportunities to affect change within our local food system, to be able to network with a lot of very talented individuals who share the same values and goals. And from a business standpoint, very little has changed, because restaurant margins are pretty small, and we've been able to really put more focus on the butchering side of things, as well as offering more value-added products over there. So honestly, it was somewhat of a lateral move, but it's just opened up so much more opportunity for us that when it comes to bottom lines and things like that, we're still, I'd say, we're still successful. We're still making money. It's just that I feel like we have a little bit bigger reach, and um, I feel like we're going to be part of lasting change, and I think that's more important than being sentimental about the restaurant, which we all are. we we promote and local meat producers first, and we only support those who respect the lives of their animals. Uh, those producers who act as responsible stewards for the land. Um, we take a very personal approach to who we decide to do business with, and I think that makes a big difference. I would say that the average consumer maybe doesn't realize how supporting uh, local food systems, how they are actually a large part of the solution, and a larger part of the solution than they may realize. When you buy local meat, you help pay uh, a farmer, a producer, a living wage. You create connection between the food on your plate and the people who raise it. And you invest in local economies, and these are the economies that need it the most. Um, so I think if people knew how much power they had in, with just their wallet, where they choose to spend their money. I know people are probably used to hearing by now, buy local and everything like that, but it truly, every single person really does make a difference. Yeah, I think that for years that maybe the policymakers didn't share those same values, and even in a state like Kansas, where there is so much agriculture, there are still so many limiting factors that make Kansas a less than desirable place for agriculture to thrive in ways that affect some of the smallest producers. Um, I I guess I worry about the uh, the livelihoods of the smaller producers, and I think that we're um, working towards uh, changing some of the policy that allows things like processing facilities to open, that allow indigenous foods, for example, to be introduced into the school system. I feel like we're on the cusp of really great things happening, and uh, we really need to start focusing on where our communities want to be headed when it comes to where our food comes from. But I think it's an exciting time now, and that there is a lot of good change coming on the horizon. I feel like, particularly in when talking about indigenous food systems, you know, things like conservation, sustainability, resourcefulness. Those are important indigenous values. The interconnectedness between living animals, the bond that we share with them, that means death to one and life to the other. To me, those ideas are more powerful than cynicism, bottom lines, or cruelty for the sake of convenience.
I mean, that's such an important point that you made there, that those relationships between the people and the animal is often overlooked, I would say. I think a lot of people who've never really experienced that don't really have a contextual way to think about that. And I think it was really great that you mentioned that, because that is historically, I think, a really big part of food production, especially in livestock management and meat production, that relationship between the producer and the animal, but also the land, right? And how that trifecta, that um, connection is so important to that end product that the consumer is going to consume. It goes way beyond what I think many people think about meat production, that it is this personless
Right.
torture,
Right.
for animals, which is largely true when you look at the big agricultural meat industry, right?
Yeah.
But for local food systems, a lot of that falls to the wayside, and it's a completely different system of management, of uh, processing, even, and
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. The economies of scale continue to concentrate production in these very large corporations in these very specific areas of the country, and they continue to, and they are uh, holding most of the labor force, and there's just there's so many things that are broken with that conventional system. I don't think it's beyond hope or anything like that, but it is it's a wake up call to make sure that what we do is purposeful, is meaningful, and is part of creating a healthier, better community, and not just
Mhm.
about making sure that our shareholders are making enough return on their investment or things like that. There's just so much more important things that we try to focus on. I find that as butchers, we really tend to focus on our skills and the actual process of cutting, and we kind of walk a tightrope in the retail business because we work in a world where a single knife cut could be the difference between making money and not making money on that cut, and so it's easy for us butchers to kind of put our nose down into the work and really just get into it. And I think we need to start thinking of ourselves as educators as well, not just educating people about guiding their purchasing decisions. That could be anything from explaining the particular carcass anatomy, or how you would prepare or cook an item that someone might be unfamiliar with. But we need to begin to think about sharing our knowledge with the younger generation of butchers who are going to be picking up this work, which, if you look at that generation, that younger generation, it's woefully small. And I wonder if we are not doing a good enough job telling our story, and providing a positive narrative for our industry, to try to ensure that the future of these small mom and pop shops like I run, or even the small scale county processor who you used to be able to bring your cattle to before all the disruption, before they lost all of their meat cutters to one of the big packers out on the west side of the state. I think that I worry about the future, and what that looks like for sure. And so I think the time is now to share our knowledge, and to spread the word of good meat. If that's something that we value, then that's where we need to start focusing our energies, I think. In if we were talking about just retail cuts, I think that sirloin is a underutilized and undervalued cut for both beef and pork. In particular, pork. For whatever reason, that cut has been very difficult to sell retail, and some of it is geographic. I know we're in the Midwest, and people love a ribeye. If they want something a little bit leaner, they immediately think of the KC strip, or the strip steak or something. And we're talking about the middle cuts here, and there's so much more that's available on the animal. And I would say that for beef, sirloin offers so much in terms of flavor, balance of flavor to tenderness. It's a great value. The price is great. And it's also not one thing. We kind of do a lot of kind of old school seam cutting. We cut a lot more to offer some of the more interesting value added cuts. So a sirloin has several different cuts that can be taken from it. And, it's our job to not just present things and give it a label, but we need to start engaging and talking about that. And that leads to a conversation about where the beef comes from, how they're fed, how they're finished. It opens things up. So I really try to, when people come in and they don't know what to get, I push them towards something like, hey, try this, because when you see sirloin at the store, it looks completely different than when you see someone who's cut it off the bone at a meat shop, and then can offer, different products within that one cut. Pork sirloin, it's such a good versatile cut of meat. You can pound it into cutlets. You can dice it for little skewers, and it's such a good deal. It has the fat cap on sirloin is like some of the sweetest fat on the animal. There's just a lot going for it, and it's recognizable. Everyone's heard of sirloin. They might not know where it comes from on the animal, but it's approachable and it's affordable and it's great. I love sirloin.
I love sirloin too. I'm so glad you mentioned that cut
Yeah,
because it really is quite underutilized.
yeah,
And maybe it's because consumers don't really, um, it hasn't been marketed like the way New York strips and
mm,
ribeyes and all of those cuts have been
right.
marketed. So maybe there's some work to do on
Yeah,
our
and
end
yeah, and
but
I tell people, a lot of these cuts are a knife cut away, or a knife cut away from each other,
mm,
and that gives them a little bit of perspective. They start to understand the way the muscles work, as they move through the body. And I don't think a lot of people realize that the sirloin comes right next to that strip steak that everybody likes so much. A knife cut away, you're into the sirloin, and then there's all of this interesting texture and flavor that comes with that.
right.
So yeah, again, I think it is our job to be better about educating people about those things. Was it it is I try to make it uh, like the butcher shop that I wanted to go to as a kid, and I definitely grew up in a small town with a butcher shop, and there are things about it that I love. The smell of the smoke when you walk in, and the beef jerky and stuff that they give you when you're a kid, and there's things like that. And then when I started working there, and I realized, that in an attempt to feed people, to feed the world, to make things affordable for people, that we were losing track of some of the important stuff. One thing that when I moved to Kansas that I didn't realize we had so many small local producers here, and they make incredible products, and the majority of them ship them off to